Hey, welcome back to Zombie Tactics. Today I want to talk a little bit about the recent forum that Vice President Joe Biden participated in with a number of popular YouTubers and his comments having to do with firearms. Well, one of the things he said was that in his opinion an AR-15 or that kind of a firearm is not very good for self-defense because, well, you might have to aim it and it might be not, it's really easy to miss with one of those things. And so what he suggested was a double-barreled shotgun, which I have here. Now, double-barrel shotgun, as the name implies, has two barrels. Those correspond to two chambers where two shotgun shells go, and you get to fire it twice before you've got to basically break open the gun again, pull out the shells, put in new ones, close it up, cock it, and fire it again. Well, that gives you two chances to do some real good to defend yourself. And certainly, there's nothing to sneeze at about a double-barreled shotgun. It's an effective weapon in the right hands. But we're limiting ourselves to 2 rounds. Later on, the Vice President goes into some detail about his opinion that the reason why we need to limit magazine capacity to perhaps 10 rounds, or maybe even 7, as recent legislation in New York would lead to believe, is because, well, that gives good guys a chance in the case where a bad guy is having to reload his rifle or his pistol. See, that way, when he's reloading, that's going to take him some extra time, and that's extra time that people might be able to run away to cover better, or people might be able to rush him and jump him and take control of the situation. And there's some logic to that, I suppose, although I'm not really sure how well that plays out in the real world. Well, if limiting someone to 10 rounds means that they can have a malfunction or they can be easily jumped and dealt with that way, well, why are we limiting the good guys to only 2? It doesn't seem to make a lot of sense as a suggestion that we should do that. But even so, a shotgun is a formidable weapon. There's a big problem with this, though, as a general suggestion, and that is that a double-barreled shotgun, as the Vice President suggests, is a very, very heavy and unwieldy weapon. As a matter of fact, I'm a 52-year-old guy, father of 3, husband of 1, as it should be, and none of the 4 women in my life are able to effectively wield this weapon. It's too heavy, it's too bulky, the length of pull, meaning how far your shoulder goes to where the trigger is too long for them. They can't wrap themselves around this firearm and use it effectively. On top of which, this gun is a beast in terms of recoil. My wife has tried it a couple times. One of my daughters, I think the oldest one, has tried it a couple times, and their attitude was like, okay, that's enough of that. I never want to touch that again. So suggesting that someone use a weapon that they're never probably going to practice with because it just plain beats the heck out of them when they do it doesn't seem to me to be a very smart thing for the Vice President to suggest. Well, you could say, well, we'll go to a different kind of shotgun to solve some of these problems. This has a slightly shorter length of pull. This is a semi-automatic shotgun, and this holds 7 rounds. You can fire it 7 times before reloading. And honestly, I think this is a great choice. One big problem, though. Current legislation wants to limit this down to 5 rounds. Again, we're going to limit the number of rounds that a good guy has in order to deal with his circumstance, while the bad guys are arguably out there going to be able to get whatever they want from wherever they want to get it from, legally or illegally. Doesn't sound like a smart thing to do to limit the good guys and let the bad guys roam free. Well, I mentioned some of the problems with a shotgun, the double barrel. Some of those problems exist here too. Even though the length of pull, the distance from your shoulder essentially to the trigger, is shorter on this, it's still not something that any of the women in my life can wrap themselves around very easily. They're kind of short in stature. And we still have a problem with recoil on this. Even though this one's better than the double-barreled shotgun would be, this is still too much for them to handle, and they don't want to deal with it. Again, it's a poor generalized suggestion to say to somebody, you ought to use a weapon that you're never going to practice with, because you want to know what you're doing with it. Well, why would we want to use something like an AR-15? Especially in California, where we are limited to 10-round magazines. I've got an AR-15 here. You've seen it before. It's a Smith & Wesson M&P Sport, one of the weapons which will be specifically outlawed for new sales by Senator Dianne Feinstein's legislation. Why do I want this? Why does a citizen ever need something that looks, and looks are what we're really talking about, as scary and militaristic looking as this? Particularly when all I get in California is 10 rounds. And this is a 20-round magazine which has been modified so that it will only accept 10 rounds. So let's be clear that I'm being legal here in California. Well, right off the bat, this weapon is light. It's easy to maneuver. The length of pull issue that I talked about before, which is, the shoulder to the trigger, this will adapt to the shorter stature of the women in my life. This weapon has virtually no recoil, and it can be easily accessorized with things like a red dot optic, which means that it's extremely easy to aim and shoot and be accurate with. Contrary to the Vice President's assertion that somehow you're going to miss easier with this than you are with a shotgun, I would suggest to you that that double-barrel shotgun, being a firearm that is unwieldy and heavy and difficult to deal with, is something that you're going to miss with at common household distances far more than you would miss with a very accurate rifle like this. Now, I know that for some people, this looks scary. It looks militaristic, but honestly, the way that this works is no different than a common hunting rifle. And even in California, where I'm limited to the 10 rounds, I'd rather have 10 rounds of this than 2 rounds of this any day. And that to me is simple, double-barreled logic having to do with defending yourself with a firearm. Now in California, we also have other things that are kind of crazy. Like, for instance, I can't just push the button on this and release the magazine. That would make it illegal here in California. I'm going to have to use a bullet or a screwdriver or something like that to release the magazine. So if 10 rounds doesn't do it for me, I'm kind of in a little bit of trouble. But thankfully, we've worked out some completely legal, going absolutely by the letter of the law, workarounds so that I can, even though I can't do it as quickly as I could with a regular AR-15, I could conceivably, in a home defense situation, load this gun quickly enough to top it off or to get more rounds in there if I'm dealing with more people or I missed more than I wanted to. So again, just a little bit of double-barreled logic about firearms for home defense, and I think, frankly, the Vice President's choice of a double barrel doesn't make any sense. A firearm like this, what some people call an assault weapon, is really just a tool for self-defense, and a very good one at that. That's Zombie Tactics for today. We'll see you next time. Keep your powder dry and always aim for the head. Bye-bye.